Welcome to the Cash Flow Project Podcast. Are you looking to better your financial situation by increasing your cash flow? Too busy to hunt for real estate deals or don't know where to start? Then you're in the right spot. Join us as we dive in and talk about investing for cash flow using multifamily real estate.
Welcome to the Cash Flow Project Podcast. I'm your host, Steve Piros with Tri-City Equity Group. Today, pretty excited. We've got somebody that operates in a new niche that I'm not familiar with. We've had other operators, of course, in the storage realm, but today we've got Chris Long on the show. So Chris is the founder and operator of Longyards Storage. After nearly a decade working in the trades, he was working as a carpenter and a business owner at Conrad Construction. He ventured full time into the realm of self-storage. So he created the very first Longyards Storage up in Ottawa. So a little chillier than where I'm at in Hawaii, and definitely chillier than where he's at now in Florida. He immigrated to the U.S. to pursue the dream of international build out of the company. So currently he's responsible for construction, stabilization, and management of the assets. Chris, hey, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Steve. Happy to be here.
Yeah, excited to have you on. Like I said, I always love, the kind of exploring a new realm, at least for us. And I think for most real estate investors, a lot of our audience is, they're passive investors and they're used to, let's say, residential, used to commercial assets. So that's typical. And we've definitely had people on that do self-storage. So I'm familiar with some operators in that, but I've never heard anybody operating in your space. And I love that. So I love that there's a million and one different ways, that people can get involved in real estate. So I'd love to kind of explore your niche and kind of what you're doing and how you even got started there. Cause to me, that's, I think that's an interesting space. So yeah, kind of fill us a little bit in, how'd you get going in the business? How'd you get going in real estate or in construction to begin with?
Yeah, I love it. So excited to be here and excited to chat about this niche. So basically how it started was I was a contractor, like you mentioned, Conrad Construction I ran that in my grandfather's name, Joe Conrad. And I grew up on a farm and I was working all the time. And, my grandfather was a big idol to me and a hard worker. So I started the construction name after him. And I always loved working with my hands in building, right? So Longyards, it kind of started by actually having a need in the marketplace. And that's what is missing to small businesses. When you need, if you look for land for rent, anything typically is an acre and above, right? And it's a lot of cases land, there's no fencing, gates, security. If you go to outside storage, then you have like a small unit. So what you're going to notice in the marketplace, you either have a long space, a big space, not ready, not prep, not ideal terms for a small business, or you get a small unit. So there's a gap in the marketplace. And that's what Longyards solves. We solve that gap in the marketplace by providing yards, basically anywhere from 2, 5, 10, or up to 20,000 square feet. And it's enough for these small businesses to get incubated, to support them. It's leases that are adaptable, right? It's not 3 years, 5 years. It could be month to month. We provide cameras, power, offices, containers. So how it found it was, I was like, this doesn't exist. Why doesn't this exist? Like, you'd think it's needed, right? And so I did some search. There are some companies doing it in Phoenix, and there's one guy. So I was, okay, so I'm not completely crazy. I want to start this. It does exist, but no one's really doing it the way I think it should be done. And so I had a commercial property. Then I just put the two and two together. I'm like, well, if I need this, I'm going to start it up. And that was a simple philosophy. And then the magic happened. I built it. I bootstrapped it myself, literally did the fencing, got it going. And I had 5 yards and I couldn't even afford to put the gates on it because it was a grind to get it started. But I got my clients to pay by the year, the first one, which I can afford to build out the facility and get it going. And then the rest is history. Once I proved concept, I got people behind me, and now the race is on. We're looking to expand this everywhere. So excited to be here and excited to chat more about it.
No, I love that. That's awesome. And for our listeners out there, this is something that I've learned, right? Like we get compensated for solving problems, right? For bringing value to the marketplace, for finding those needs, those holes, right? Like any massive company or anybody who's achieving just really massive success is always going to be the same story. Hey, there's a need in the marketplace that's either underserved or it's emerging or, something along those lines. So, as a business owner, as an operator, I mean, we're always only going to get compensated as far as how much value that we can provide. Right. So, you obviously identified that hole in the market, right? That's something that's under you. Hey, how come nobody's doing this? Or if they're doing it, it's another country, right? Or it's in another place. It's like, hey, why don't we bring this here? There's a local need for it. I can see it. And then you would have experienced that too. You're a contractor. Hey, you know what? There's times where I'm going to need, heavy equipment, or, where we've had to, tap somebody else or rent a space from somebody else to be able to store our items, right? Building materials, equipment, whatever it is. Hey, how about we just own the space, right? So no, I love that. I love that. I love that. So,
And,
um,
and it's crazy. Sometimes when you're talking to people, you talk to landscapers or small businesses or renovators that are working on your building.
mhm.
The same problem again and again. I need space, hard to find. I'm parking it at my grandma's. I leave these trailers in this parking lot. It's just a disaster and an operational drag, knowing that they have one location. So it's a major problem, right? From the inside out as a small business. And it's a great solution for me to bring that to the marketplace. So yeah, I'm excited to chat about it, but yeah, it's great.
Well, yeah, and that's great too. That's great that you, for one, because it sounds like I know you mentioned the original construction company named after your grandfather. So for one, hey, we already have kind of this, I'm working with my hands, at least somewhat entrepreneurial, let's say, in the family. So you're able to honor your family name, but you're also too, not everybody who does that, right? You could just be, well, hey, I'm a third generation carpenter or whatever, but to have the kind of the business sense to identify the opportunity, because I found that a lot of times there's a disconnect there. Hey, I, got somebody working in the trades, I'm awesome, amazing electrician, plumber, whatever in the trade, but they can't, there's not a bridge, that
Right.
gap there, right? For
Exactly.
that,
And
for the business side of it.
I think I was fortunate because I always had this mind where like I was selling chocolate bars, knocking on doors at 14. So I've never been afraid to knock on the door and get the door slammed and rejection and just perseverance to get to the next door. So then I was selling asphalt in high school. And then as a contract, as soon as I got my ticket as a licensed carpenter, immediately I was selling jobs and then I was building and then I was able to branch it off right away. So I always had that entrepreneurial spirit and the ability to not be afraid of rejection and objections. So it allowed me to create that bridge. I wasn't afraid. Like, I know this is needed. And it was a big leap of faith. Like, I had to sell my rental properties. I had to really take a leap to get this started. And no one would invest in me. So like, what? You want to build a yard? I'm like, yeah, I need it. Someone else needs it. They're like, but I haven't seen it. So you got to be a pioneer and you got to take the arrows in the back and cut the path in front of you. So, it was challenging on a few fronts getting it started for that. But yeah, man, it would help me build the bridge by having that ability just to take a leap and not be afraid to see what happens.
Yeah, I can see the excitement, kind of in your voice and, in your face when you're talking about it. For those that aren't listening, or they're listening to it, not watching the video, Chris is definitely excited about the space. And honestly, I mean, that's what it takes, right? If you're not excited about it, it's going to be pretty hard to get, other investors on board, or,
Yeah.
business partners, that kind of stuff too. So yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, how important, let's say, has mindset been to you all along the way? Because, facing rejection, like you said, pioneering kind of this new space, exploring, hey, look, that can be daunting, right? Like, especially if you've got a lot of people, that's not going to work. Hey, that's not true. Hey, why don't you just use your carpenter skills? Just, stay in your lane, kind of deal. Like, did you run into kind of much of that where you're facing negative thoughts, kind of things that, hey, maybe this thing won't work. How
Absolutely.
important is kind of mindset along the way?
I think it's important for entrepreneurs to remind themselves that like it's okay to have these mindsets, but you just need to overrule them, I think, with gratefulness and an opportunity. Because there's always like a devil on the shoulder battling, what if this doesn't work? Right. And I've taken these giant leaps of faith. Like for the first rental property, moving to the States, immigrating, it was 6 weeks. I sold my house and went all in. I had 3 daughters and we had our dogs and we're driving to the States and we didn't even have a place to rent. And I didn't know how I was going to buy a property. I didn't know how I was going to immigrate, but I knew I was going to do it. So I had to battle with that mindset and that little devil of the fear and the what if, but the fear of the regret, I think to me is more painful of like what could happen because I'm a pure believer of like following your dreams and going all in. So mindset's majorly important and you have to have strategies to overcome that. And typically it's the fear of failure that you need to overcome with what if and how great can it be? And then what's the worst case? We live in a great place and most people in Canada and the US. What is the worst case? You're going to live with a family member if you lose everything. A lot of people could could fall down, but bounce back up and you've learned. And like, so maybe you have this financial safety net. You're like, I can't ruin that. But so you need to be willing to step back, take a launch forward. But yeah, the mindset's huge and you got to find ways to overcome it. But it's been one of the big things that I think a lot of people battle with. And it's not an easy way to overcome, but there's strategies you can use. And it's a big one though. In order to get from A to B, it starts with mindset.
Yeah, that's huge. And that, like, to me, that speaks volumes too. because I wasn't aware that you already had the kids before you came, let's say to the, to the US, because that's a huge jump. I mean, we've dealt with it with family and whatnot, going through kind of that immigration process and all that. And so, okay, not only are you, working with this new kind of business idea and venture, but it's like, well, hey, honey, we're going to go, I got the kid, go move to another country, and that's completely different too, right? Because you're going to Florida, so you're going all the way south. It's not like you just hopped across the border where maybe the culture's a little similar and the weather's similar, but it's like, no, it's like, oh my goodness, this is a total change. So man, kudos to you. That's a huge
Oh,
jump.
yeah.
And yeah, and I want to comment too. It's like, well, I could hear it, when you're saying it. It's like, well, look, I already know that this is going to be successful. I know that this is going to happen. I know that we're going to go do this, and then you go do it, right? And so it's almost like you have to kind of sell yourself on the success of it, right? So no, that's huge. Yeah, man, that's great.
Yeah. It's funny.
How's your family? Go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, it's crazy because like I was a carpenter and I did like basic sales, right? So I was in Canada. So okay, now it's like a frame shift. I went from carpenter in Canada to bootstrap my first business to now going into real estate development in a different country, and we built a franchise. So I'm a franchisor on top of it. So I'm in like I just like jumped in the deep end with like weights on my feet. I'm like, oh, let's see if I could drown or not. Let's get out of here. But but it's been nothing but the best. And I've learned so much in such a short period of time that the skills I've learned and the resourcefulness that I've found to acquire in new skill sets from new people. And that's what's been the most powerful. So yeah, my family and I were having a bunch of fun being down here, and the girls were in Florida. We went to Disney last week, that's a treat in itself. So I'm truly blessed.
Yeah, you have that, you got that trump card in your back pocket, right? It's like, well, look, look, if everything else is going sideways, kids, we're going to Disney World. Yeah, that's awesome. Well, you kind of throughout your journey here, then like up to this point, like, because man, you've overcome, a number of like hurdles there, right? Like, most people, okay, hey, at least I'm operating in my own country, to get something going, right? Like, what would you say has been like kind of the biggest challenge that you face? Because, we're talking about a number of different things there, right? You had to learn a different culture. You have to learn, how does business operate in this new place? You're learning a new business, right? So like, what would you say along that way? Like, what's been a, major challenge, or what's kind of been the biggest obstacle or hurdle that you've had to overcome?
I would say like right now, the biggest challenge is because I would say right now is it's kind of like being a new CEO, right? Like being a CEO and learning the language of CEO is a new challenge in front of me that's harder than I thought it would be, right? It's being able to delegate tasks, be able to get the right people in the right place, to inspire leadership, core values, all of that. So, because the business works, Longyards is not a problem, right? And then when you find a good deal, the money's not a problem. And now it's like building a great team and great systems behind you. And that's been a little challenging because as a contractor most of my life, the job was the scope of work. I'd do a basement.
Right.
Yeah, I understand every single person I need and everything. But with Longyards, it's one of the challenges we're having as a CEO is the acquisition. As we could dive into, getting the industrial properties and in the right area that meet the buy box, right zoning, everything else has been very difficult to say the least. So, I'm trying to measure my inputs versus outputs, how I acquire the right people to acquire, and it's been hard. So we've actually recently pivoted to a new acquisition strategy because it's been so difficult. So yeah, I would say the biggest challenge right now is kind of learning the rhymes and reasons and the rhythm of like a good CEO. And that, comes with like tackling the hardest part in the business. Like I just have to, it's like a chain link, and I got to find the weakest link and put the effort in that weakest link all the time and just attack that, and then put the right person and systems there and then move to the next link. And I'm trying to build a chain from A to Z, acquisition to fulfillment. So yeah, that's not an easy answer, but it's a wide one. And,
Yes.
but anyone with a growing business that I think is in those trenches can be relatable. And that's an ongoing thing. I think it's just an inexperienced CEO, and I'm being vulnerable by saying that because that's the reality of where I'm at right now. But I love it at the same time. And I'm a pretty transparent person.
No, and the humility component, I think is huge because look, we don't know it all, right? Like it's, I think ask any business owner, and there's always going to be growing pains. I mean, even if like that, even if you're following a tried and true, I mean, you guys are like, obviously this is a newer segment, let's say in the market, right? It's just not real widespread, we'll say. But gosh, there's always going to be growing pains. Even if you're a fix and flipper, well, hey, guess what? There's so many different components, let's say along the path of acquisition to disposition as you get to the very end. There's so many variables there. And you're going to need to tweak and you're going to need to dial in. So no, thank you for your vulnerability and kind of sharing that because, hey guys, for our listeners and the rest of the audience, that's a real deal. I mean, it's, it's not always rainbows and sunshines, like it's for any of you guys that are willing to, or interested in kind of jumping in, let's say to business or just kind of getting started and looking for what is the reality of it. Right. Chris has put his family through it. I mean, kind of most all of us have that are going through it. I mean, even if you're solo and just getting started, doesn't mean you're not going to experience challenges. So no, kudos to you for that. So, and are you focusing now, like kind of to shift a little bit more into back to the business component? I know you're in a couple of different locations or you've had experience in a couple of different locations. Are you guys now trying to focus on like, let's say specific areas? Okay. Hey, look, this is my team here in Florida, or this is my team back in Canada. I'm the CEO. Are you still operating on both fronts? Are you saying like, okay, no, we're going to drill down, let's say, in the Florida market, and we're just going to hammer this market, or, kind of what's your current kind of strategy there?
So we have a good in-depth acquisition strategy or focus for Florida, mainly because it's in my neck of the woods. I'm studying the market, it's quality control. We want our first locations and partners to be hyper-focused in Florida, and that's pretty organic to the central location. I'm close to Tampa. Right now we're building out Winter Haven. We're targeting Lakeland. Then we want to be north of Tampa, south of Tampa. We can get into the weeds a little bit because the zoning regulations make it so difficult and everything else. And then it's opportunity driven. As a franchisor, we have franchisees that are securing territory. We just secured another territory a couple of weeks ago, and then we're putting them on acquisition. But in terms of corporate, our corporate focus is majority of Florida, and that's for quality control because we got our first phase of growth. And then the opportunity is by if someone reaches out, hey, I love your model, want to get involved. Okay, A, are you a good fit for the team? Do you believe in our vision? And then B, are you in a good location, or can you be close to a good location? And then does an opportunity work? So it has to meet those three criteria. So yeah, that's basically our strategy right now in the short term.
And I'm curious too. Like, I'm curious as to like your buy box, cause like what it would take. I'm just mentally trying to think, all right, like what does this thing need to be zone for? Like it needs to be zone, industrial, you're probably wanting, depending on how many, yards that you can fit, like per, let's say acre or whatever, like, okay, minimum lot size, it's gotta be, I don't know, a couple acres or, maybe 10, 20 acres. So I don't know. And also too, maybe this is kind of throwing it out too and say, hey, put this out to our listeners. Hey, what's your buy box? Just so if you've got something that may be interesting, we've got a lot of listeners here that are across the country, hey, maybe they'll be like, hey, Chris, hey, I've got a deal, like I've got something that could work for you. I guess, because again, since this is not like, I'm not familiar, I wouldn't, prior to our conversation here, I mean, I get stuff thrown at me all the time, and it's like, hey, Steve, I've got a 10-acre parcel here. I don't really know what to do with it. Like if you talk to most, let's say a wholesaler or something on residential or whatever, it's like, they'll come across all kinds of stuff where I'm like, I don't have a buyer for this. Like, this is not traditional, like typical, real estate where I've got, 40 buyers waiting on the back end. Florida's obviously a hot market, but throw out, kind of give us an idea of what you're looking for, and maybe we'll have, maybe we can drum up some, some opportunity for you on the show.
I love it. So, I mean, I will mention right from the top, we are looking for wholesalers around the state. And if people bring us industrial land, then let's do it. And so basically it starts with industrial, in most cases, industrial, some commercial. And we have to go through every zoning office in every county, get the zoning codes, and then get the building requirements. That's the first filter. And then it's the city requirements. So some areas for outside storage, they want all asphalt, they want fire hydrants every few feet, roofs, and it's like, it just doesn't work. So we have to go through multiple layers just to see if we're going to target the actual narrow land in those areas. So, but the buy box is, it kind of like looks simple on the surface, right? Like fenced in yards, cameras, power, but we add so much more to that. And then how we communicate that to the city is important. But to keep it simple for the listeners, it's like 4 to 6 acres, minimum industrial land, close to a highway or close to good demographics. And it has to have, good income, good growth, job growth, or there's just not much space in your bottleneck and there's a good piece of industrial land. And that's what, is one acquisition strategy, but also a new acquisition strategy we're innovating on is kind of like a U-Haul model. So because I've been kind of like looking for these hard parcels of land while driving past hundreds of pieces of land. And I keep asking myself, like, why am I making my life so hard when our business model is so simple? So what we're actually doing is we're if people have extra land on the side of their property, side of their business that's in commercial industrial areas, then we can actually work with them. So that's unique because we're not changing the zoning, we're not changing the usage, and everything moves around. Our fencing moves around, our containers move around. So it's similar to U-Haul in many different models and a similar language. And this way it's advantageous to our clients as well, because we're in more locations, we can charge more, it's less risk, it's faster build out. So my first year and a half, I was kind of like, okay, let me go find the most expensive, hardest in demand real estate that is impossible for zoning. And then I took off my real estate hat, I put on my business hat. I'm like, wait a second, there's another way to do this. So now we've actually just pivoted our entire model to go and joint venture with landowners. So if anyone's listening, you got land, you think it's a good fit, reach out and we can do a partnership. And then we have 3 options. We either franchise, we joint venture, or we lease. And it's actually a good pitch for me. It's like, if we're leasing, it costs you no money, right? So we'll come to your land, we'll do everything, zero out of your pocket. Let's work together. So yeah.
Yeah, no, that's great. And like I said, that kind of fills me in too. And I'm 100% sure, like our investors and whatnot, like it's interesting, right? Like this opens up new doors of opportunity, I think, for existing landowners, just kind of how you said, I'm like, hey, I've got this parcel here and, well, we kind of do this with it, but we, obviously underutilized. Right. And so like that allows them to partner with somebody potentially like you, or, sell it to you or whatever, however that may look, to be able to go out and give the best use for it. Have you found that maybe that could work too, where it's like, well, hey, you got an existing, let's say U-Haul or somebody else is doing, not quite exactly the same, or some kind of self-storage where it's like, well, look, can we expand on this? You got a parcel behind it. Zoning obviously could probably work with it. You're already storing the small stuff. And I like how you kind of put it on another show where it's like, yeah, we store the big stuff,
That's
it's
it. Exactly. But you're absolutely right. We can self-storage facilities are great because a lot of time there's land, but it's beside a self-storage facility. And then a lot of people are shy away, or beside a multifamily. But we're complementing to the self-storage industry.
Right.
If people are just storing the big stuff and then they go across the door and they store the small stuff, so we do have more like blue collar industrial clientele, but yeah, man, like if it's land and it's in an industrial sector and it's, even 2 acres, we can make it work. So we can, it's really exciting. So it kind of just opened up the horizon for us on a larger opportunity and scalable method. But yeah, the opportunity is there.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and how, I'm kind of curious, like how the debt would work and kind of how you found, like, obviously, we've walked into this, the last year, gosh, even going year plus now, kind of this higher interest rate, where we've seen quite a shift, right? In terms of general market sentiment, debt side, investor side, all that kind of stuff. So how have you found that to be, let's say, going in and raising capital or working with, let's say, lenders? Are you finding more where it's, well, hey, this is hard to get debt on. So we're working with more sellers to do seller financing or seller, some kind of a seller carry, or, I don't know, maybe, you're finding small banks that say, no, we've had zero problem going and getting business loans because they see the need in their market. I don't know, like what have you seen kind of working that side, or working with your, the operators and different franchisees with that?
Well, it's great because Longyards got approved by SBA, right? So now we can acquire land for 85 to 90% loan to value. And like not many businesses allow that.
Yeah.
So it's quite unique to the marketplace because our build out is relatively inexpensive and our cash flow is really high. So with this lending environment, people were building when rates were like, in the mid teens back then, right? So I was seeing 7 or 8%. And they're going, oh my God, cheap money's not available anymore. Well, how much cash does your property produce? I got blue ocean method, right? I got properties, deals everywhere. And like I said, my build out's low. We have a great brand and a great system to acquire great clients. We know the right size yards. We know how to value add. So all these ingredients, I'm not as concerned about it because our cash flow or debt service coverage ratio are above the 3s in many cases. I actually have to dumb the numbers down so the lenders don't go too conservative. I have to make my business sound worse than it is. So they give me a decent, term sheet, because that's the truth of it. And we have other layers. We're not just storage yards, right? And that's our slogan, more than storage, for a reason. We sell offices, we sell containers, pop-up units, which is unique to the market. We have a container that comes from Europe that fold and unfold. They put them in the yards and we sell them. So that just pumps revenue from our locations. That doesn't even include in the rental rates of the debt service coverage ratio. So, and that's why SBA approved us. We're like, okay, you guys got a unique model. You're pumping cash. Let's get behind you. So yeah, it's great because a lot of people are, as you're discovering, it's like, oh my God, it's hard to, we're 2 points off. How do we add how do we decrease our expenses and increase our income and get flexible? So I'm not even worried about that. My numbers just blow it off the charts. My biggest problem is finding good locations and finding good partners and operators. So that's my bottleneck in the business right now, which we're working strongly on, going back to my CEO pain. But yeah, the lenders, and then we have multiple strategies too. We have a really good package that we send to the lender on top of it. This is who we are. And the first paragraph is like, we show the numbers and it's like, oh my God. And the rest is just justifying it. We show what's on the market. We show what we've done before. We show who we are. And our acquisition strategy, our management, our lease up, our execution is a very well bundled package. And then the lenders usually come to us. Here's the term sheet. Let's talk, right? And then we go to the second phase. That's on the more corporate industrial land. And then on the other side, we just have investors that are straight up backing us up and we just do a profit share program. And it's pretty simple and they're happy.
Oh, that's awesome. I mean, I'm excited for you because it sounds like, it sounds like an awesome opportunity. No, it really does. And you're in an amazing state to do it. Right. I mean, Florida's just been booming in terms of population growth. I mean, you ask any investor now, hey, where are you investing? Right. We're in the Sun Belt, anywhere in the South. And, obviously Florida's an incredibly business friendly state, no state income tax. I mean, there's, so many different reasons to go, to go down to Florida. So yeah, no, I think you're in a prime spot to be able to do well for an extended, for the foreseeable future, really. So that's awesome. And I love hearing that you can still get, because, you watch the news or anything, like I said, it's so doom and gloom, right? Oh, they just hiked interest rates again, right? And so, of course, depending on what your market is, depending on what your strategy is, it's doom and gloom, right? It's like, oh man, well, there's a housing bust and there's real estate bust and Airbnb is busting and everything's freaking busting. It's like, dude, from what I'm hearing, it's like, no, I'm busting down doors, man. Like we need some.
I don't have a money problem.
We need more.
Yeah, we don't have a money problem. We have a deal problem. We need more great deals. And that's why we're pivoting with our model. But yeah, man, our numbers are kind of stupid. Yeah.
That's a great problem to have, man. You're solving one end of that, of the equation, right? It's like, well, look, no, I've got capital. I've got a solid business plan. We know this works. The cash flow's like crazy. I just need more deal flow, right? I need more opportunity to be able to implement the rest of the strategy. And that's not always something, obviously, I mean, this can kind of vary depending on where we are in the market cycle, but that's not the problem that a lot of people are facing right now. Right. So that's incredible.
Yeah. Yeah. That's why it's different. You solve different problems, but you get into different problems trying to solve those problems. And that's where
Sure.
I'm in the weeds, but I saw a blue ocean method, but now I'm just in the weeds trying to figure it out. And that's my CEO challenge. But yeah, it's super exciting. Like I could dive into it more, but the numbers are strong, business model is strong,
Sure.
the market need is strong, a lot of great ingredients. And yeah, we're just excited to bring in great people and blow this up.
Yeah, no, and I'm familiar. You've mentioned it a couple of times. I'm familiar with exactly what you're talking about, but for those of our listeners that may not be kind of familiar with that terminology, you've mentioned blue ocean. I know this is red ocean, blue ocean. Tell us, kind of just fill the listeners in, like, hey, what does that mean? Like, is it just because is he talking about blue ocean because he's in Florida? Like, it's like, oh, do we buy something? Do we buy something right by the water? Like, he's in Hawaii. Chris is talking about Florida, man. Those are some pretty blue waters. Well, like I said, I obviously know what you're talking about, but can you fill the listeners in a little bit on kind of what that is and what that strategy means, what the terminology means?
So blue ocean is looking at what everyone else is not looking at and finding the highest and best use of it. So like I'm in a mastermind with, self-storage mastermind, and there's a lot of members, over 100, and I'm the only person there that's doing what I'm doing. So you have to, find the biggest strengths of the little micro skills that you have, but it's targeting the market differently, right? So everyone's multifamily. They're all, I don't know how multifamilies are getting the same flyer, the same cold calls, same voicemail drop, where I'm calling someone and offering a proposal that no one else is doing. And that's blue ocean. It's going after the opportunities that no one else is being able to identify and creating value with it.
Yeah. No, exactly. And it's like the red ocean, right? Like the red ocean is just so, man, it's so bloody and so murky from all of the other fish that are just chomping on each other in the water. It's like, gosh, there's no clean blue water to kind of swim out and explore. Right. So what Chris has done is like, well, no, I identified an opportunity, a hole in the market, really an opportunity to go create this new fresh blue ocean, water. So yeah, no, that I love that. And this is the competitive advantage, right? Like this is what gives you an unfair advantage to go into, let's say, this market. And really, I mean, how many other markets could you take that strategy into, around the US, like where it's underserved, right? Where it's like, well, hey, look, no, there's land and you're in the perfect spot. Like I said, you've got population growth. You've got, most of those markets there where you're at, you've got strong fundamentals. You definitely have population growth on your side, no doubt. And it's business friendly and all that. So again, blue ocean, that's a blue ocean right there.
You got it,
No,
man.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. Well, you know what? At this point of the show is a kind of what we want to transition to what we call our fire round, just a little bit more rapid fire, quick answer, just to kind of keep you on your feet. Is that something you're game
Let's
for?
do it. Yeah, 100%. Let's go.
And I love our conversation too, because I love exploring this space. So
Yeah.
we'll have to kind of circle back with you and kind of see where you're at in a little bit, but
Do it.
and for a little further down the road. But all right, let's get to the fire round. All right, what is your best book that you recommend other than Rich Dad Poor Dad? For most people, Rich Dad Poor Dad's a real estate Bible, but is there anything that's been, beneficial to you either as a business owner or, on the real estate side? Heck, it could even be a woodworking book, it doesn't matter, what,
The carpentry volume. You know what? I'm going to go with Ready, Fire, Aim. Ready, Fire, Aim is a good book, and it's helped me right now in the CEO journey. And that's a good one for sure for business.
All right. Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, definitely. I know that's a good book. I've heard that one before for sure. Ready, Fire, Aim. All right. What would you consider is your superpower? You're juggling a lot of, you got a lot of different hats that you have to wear, obviously being a CEO, but you've handled, multiple parts of the business, right? But what would you consider kind of throughout your journey? What would you identify as your superpower?
Yeah, I guess I'd frame it like a stubbornness of perseverance. Like I just will not stop at my goal, and I don't care if I get kicked in the stomach and punched in the head and fall down. I'll get back up and keep going. So it's I've been taking the hits for a long time. So yeah, stubbornness and perseverance.
I mean, absolutely a superpower. I mean, as an entrepreneur, you need it, right? I mean, how many
Yeah.
times do you just like, you get, oh no, that's a door slam in my face. That's a no, it's a door slam in my face.
Oh
You
man.
need it. You need it, right? Or else you don't survive, man. You don't, no, that's great. And then, okay. So next question, what's the biggest lesson that you've learned over your career to this point?
Say no quick. So if you get a gut feeling and you're not feeling good about it and the numbers are not working, you just need to pivot quickly and say no quickly. And as an employee, fire them fast, hire slow, fire fast. Ideal. Just learn to take your losses and walk away quickly and put your energy and focus on the next one. So yeah, say no fast. It's more important
Yeah.
to say no than yes, CEO. And you got to say no 95% of the time and yet 5% of the time. And it's focus,
No, I think that's actually really, really great info. That's great insight, for one. I mean, most business owners will understand that, but they may not be implementing it very well. But that's Chris is absolutely right. Definitely have to say no. The way that I kind of learned it was, well, for one, I mean, you can take it to operations or you can take it to the business, the way you're running your business. But the way I've always kind of learned it was, well, every yes is a no to something else, right? So you're thinking, man, this is opportunity cost here. Like, if I just saying that I don't want to fire this person or, I don't want to, this business opportunity, it's like, well, it sounds good, but it's kind of taking me out of what I need to be in. And it's like, well, that's a no to something else that could be, a home run for you in your core, in your buy box and your core target. And so, yeah, no, I think that's excellent advice. Excellent advice. All right. For the busy, oh, go ahead.
And just to add to that, as entrepreneurs, CEOs, like you're sitting back and you're always thinking about the next strategy, the next move. Well, you have this mental energy that you're taking up. But just by you adverting that, now that thought process and that problem solving that you're really, in a clear space or on vacation or walking the dog, whatever the case is, it's going to the wrong spot. So there's, it's like the execution has to be really clean and you need that vision and that thought process to go into that focus. So it's deep on many levels. But anyways, I wanted to add that.
Yeah, no, and actually that's really good. And I feel like that's probably part of that disconnect. And we talked a little bit about that at the beginning of the show. It's like, well, some people are just so used to working in the business, right? It's a challenge to step back and kind of see, bigger picture. And as an operator, as a CEO, you're the one that's having to kind of make those big picture moves. And that's the person that definitely needs to have that vision for, the business and where it's going. Now, you know what, we can't take this detour over here. Like, we need to focus here and solve the problems and the challenges that are here in our lane. You start saying yes to all this stuff out in left field, it really takes you away from where you need to be. And you can't hone in on those core challenges to your business. So yeah, no, that's vital. That's great advice. You guys are getting excellent business advice here on the show today. All right. And then for the next question, for the busy working professional that's trying to work towards financial freedom, what advice for you have for them? You're deep in the trenches now, but we're talking a little bit more to, let's say, somebody who's trying to, find financial freedom. This could be towards a passive side. This could be more, hey, come, JV with me, or, what advice would you have for them?
Well, that's a great thing, because I always wanted financial freedom as a kid, right? And then I was always working towards that real estate, and then I was on the way there, and then I went bankrupt. I lost it all. I went to ground zero, and then I built it back up, and I achieved it in 3 years. I was financially free from bankrupt in 3 years, just because of the skill sets I learned and how to, execute on all of them. So I would say, for the average working person that wants to create financial freedom, you mentally need to go into it. You need to create a clear checklist and a clear, achievable goal. Read Traction, great book. Create your goal, create the number you want. If financial freedom is 12 grand a month, what do you need to get to 12 grand a month? And then start action iteming those lists and breaking them down, and then check them off one by one. And then don't be afraid to fall, fail, move sideways to get to them. And then I think, there's no easy answer for it. It's not going to come overnight. It's going to come through sacrifice, through grind, through pains, through perseverance. But on the other side, you need to remind yourself of that vision. And Anthony Robbins does a great job mentioning this. It's resourcefulness, right? So how bad do you really want it? Are you willing to eat the crap to get it? So it's a mental fortitude, and it's with actionable, clear, identified items. So it's probably not a short answer, but if someone wants to go, there's no short, easy road, and prepare yourself mentally to get out of that. And what answer are you going to have? The fear of regret of not doing it? Or do you want, or do you want the reward? So pick your battle.
Boom. That's mic drop. For our listeners, go back to wine. Listen to that last 60 seconds from Chris, because right there, that's it in a nutshell. I've talked to, friends and who've kind of seen what we've done, and it's like, man, you guys have been, really not suffering, but, what them, the outside, someone on the outside looking in, it's like, oh, you guys have been suffering, doing that, or looking at that and just kind of focusing on certain. And I'm like, I don't see it that way. This has afforded us opportunities to do all kinds of other cool stuff because we were focused and just took a step back and we're willing to do something that other people weren't willing to do, even if it's just for a season, right? Like, not saying it's going to be forever, but that opens up doors that you just can't even understand, so yeah, no, I love that. It's excellent advice. I think that's an awesome way for us to kind of wrap up our time together, Chris. And so I thank you so much for coming on with us. If our listeners want to reach out to you, if they want to find out more about kind of the franchise model, if they've got a deal for you, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you and reach out?
Love it. They can reach me at longyards.com. Go to the website. My email is clong@longyards.com, and I'll put my number 941-278-1995. And happy to take any calls if anyone's of interest.
Hopefully get some calls with some increased deal flow from that. And
great people, and just great deals. Let's make it happen.
All right. That's awesome. Awesome. Well, Chris, thank you so much for coming on today and kind of helping us to explore, a new avenue to find success in real estate. I love it. Like I said, I think it's exciting. I think you've got an awesome future in front of you in terms of not only your own personal business, but the industry as a whole. So I wish you the best of success, and thanks for coming on today.
Love it. Thanks, Steve. Much appreciated.
Aloha. Appreciate it. Thank you. Oh man, what a great episode. We're recording with Chris Long from Longyards. He's got an awesome business model using industrial zoned space, lots, land for larger storage effectively. So just think, self-storage on a larger scale for, let's say, larger equipment, or even just people needing more space than a traditional self-storage unit could offer. He's operating out of Florida. And so they've got a great strategy, excellent business advice too. So Chris shared a number of different things in our conversation that I think are hugely beneficial. I mean, any entrepreneur, any business owner, I think would tons of value from that talk. So, and that's pretty amazing that he was able to go, bankrupt, and he's obviously very vulnerable in sharing, some of the challenges that a CEO faces and an operator faces in any business. It's definitely not all rainbows and sunshine. And, even though we're in a beautiful place and he's got great opportunity, that doesn't come without its own challenges. So that's always something important to remember as a business owner. If you don't feel like you're by yourself or you're the only one facing those challenges, if it's not always, easy sledding, right? So that's just a part of the journey, part of being an investor, part of being an active business owner. We all face it. And so I appreciate his vulnerability and coming on. But yeah, excellent show. If you know somebody that might find some value in that, please make sure that you're sharing the episode. And honestly, we would love your 5-star review. And even, if you love the show, if you got value out of it, awesome. We'd love to hear that. We love the feedback. And if there's operators or there's people in certain industries or spaces that you guys want to listen to, make sure that you're leaving that in the comments. Like, hey, I'd love to hear some more people on this. We'll go and try to find some people who are operating in that space or whatever it is, whatever niche that may be that's generating outside cash returns or just kind of a new and innovative space. So, and then guys, if you're interested in investing with us, Tri-City Equity, go to tricityequity.com. You can learn a little bit more about our team, some of our past projects, what we're doing, because we're definitely active on the investing side. If you're connected or if you're wanting, to connect with us and you're here locally in Honolulu, jump on our Facebook group, join our Facebook group. We've got a group called Honolulu Multifamily and More. We host meetups, networking meetups every month. So it's a great way to come out and meet local investors who are, wanting to get better. They're wanting to learn more about how they can better themselves, better their financial position through real estate. You'll meet people there who've got, all kinds of experience. So definitely come out and make sure that you're connecting with us if you're there local, if you're here locally with us. And like I said, would definitely appreciate you guys sharing the show so that we can reach more people, help more people, bring some more value to the marketplace. All right, guys. Well, that's going to be it for me today. Steve Fierro signing off. We hope you guys are out there taking some action and enjoying every day of life and opportunity. So guys, we'll see you on the next show. Aloha.